Today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, and the only conservative alternative to the other group, AARP. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Today, I'm going to be joined by Arizona Senate candidate Blake Masters. He has been backed by President Trump. He is young, he is energetic, and by gosh, he can take on the tech industry, and I believe the swamp in Washington, D.C. I want to hear from him. I want to hear what his plan is for the great state of Arizona, why he should be senator, what is going to make him the right candidate to beat Mark Kelly. These are the questions we want to know. These are the questions we are going to answer for you here on the Sara Carter Show. I'm so excited. I will also share a huge story about American energy oil reserves. Guess what? Being sent to a Chinese company connected to Hunter Biden. This is crazy, guys. This is crazy. And you know what? Where's the New York Times? Where's the Washington Post? Bloomberg? I mean, okay. Yeah, so little stories here and there. If this would have been President Trump and Don Jr. or Eric Trump or Ivanka, there would be these massive hearings already. People would be like sending the FBI over to, their house and shaking them down and taking them out and, calling CNN and having CNN come and film it right before. This is what's happening in our country. We are literally on the verge. Some people would say yes, under Biden, of being a banana republic. And we are going to break that down for you here on the show. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saraacarter.com. And while you are there, I want you to sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Before I get to this incredible interview with Blake Masters, you guys will not want to miss this. I'm telling you, I'm going to ask him about Elon Musk. I'm going to ask him about President Trump and Elon Musk fighting. I'm going to talk to him about what needs to happen in America as far as education. I'm going to grill him on all of those questions. So just hang tight. We'll be right with him. But first, I'm going to talk to you about MyPillow. MyPillow is a great American company, just like AMAC. It's another sponsor of this show and one that I absolutely believe in. I believe in MyPillow. The products are great. And right now, Mike Lindell is offering my listeners $90. You're going to save $90 on MySlippers. You're going to save it. Regular price, $139.98, and a blowout price of $49.98 with the promo code Carter. I mean, it took 2 years to develop these slippers. I remember when they were actually developing them and we were waiting patiently for them to come. This is when Mike's really expanding his business. These are fantastic. I've said it before on past shows. Get them now. Just get them now, buy them. So that way when Christmas comes around, you've got a closet full of gifts, and they are great gifts. They are American-made gifts, and you're supporting a company that believes in this nation, that is patriotic, and you're going to feel good about yourself. Go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 for the MySlippers at only $49.95. And while you are there, take advantage of the deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the BOGO extravaganza on the bed sheets, which we love, the MyPillows, and so much more. The doggy beds, I love them. Actually, my little Chihuahua is sleeping underneath my desk right now on a MyPillow doggy bed, and she loves it. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today for the most comfortable slippers you'll ever own, and get Mike's book free. You can't beat that. mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. Let's talk about these U.S. oil reserves sent to a Chinese company connected to Hunter Biden. While the United States, while we are facing massive inflation, gas prices soaring through the roof, while American families are suffering, U.S. oil reserves are being sent to a Chinese company connected to Hunter Biden. How do we even explain this? I want you to go to my website, saraacarter.com. The story is there, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it here. This was reported in the Federalist. I love the Federalist. Molly Hemingway, everyone there does a phenomenal job. Biden's Energy Department in April announced the sale of 950,000 strategic petroleum reserve barrels to Unipec, a trading arm of the China Petrochemical Corporation. That company, which is commonly known as Sinopec, is wholly owned by the Chinese government. I would contend an enemy of the United States in more ways than one. Sinopec is also tied to guess who? Crack smoking son of the president, Hunter Biden, who, by the way, can't even speak Mandarin, can't even speak Russian, was sitting on, Ukrainian gas company board, is involved in all these shenanigans, whose laptop basically said the big guy gets 10%, the big guy being President Biden gets 10%, a cut, and whose private equity firm, BHR Partners, bought a $1.7 billion stake in the company 7 years ago. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I'm living in an upside down world, right? I feel like I'm living in an upside down world. Hunter Biden's lawyer told the New York Times, which is in the pocket of Biden anyway, so anything they try to say, like even if they get a story, it's because they had like some meeting at the White House in the West Wing where they all concocted how they were going to be the first to tell this story and how they were going to give it a softball landing and how can we fix it, because of course they hate President Trump, and President Trump is going to run again, more than likely, for the presidency of the United States. So they don't want him. They don't want President Trump to win because they know he's going to win. The nincompoop's in office. So Hunter Biden's lawyer told the New York Times in November that the president's son no longer holds any interest directly or indirectly in either BHR or Scan-Etalus. I don't even know how to pronounce this name. We'll just whatever that other name is, but with BHR or the company connected to the Chinese firm. I call bullshit on that. Because every connection matters, especially when you're dealing with national security. The fact that BHR Partners bought a $1.7 billion stake in this company 7 years ago is a tie. It's a direct tie. And we have seen Hunter Biden's connections to China. There have been questions about his flights, even into Beijing with his father, and whether or not, when his father was vice president, whether or not Hunter Biden was double dipping using taxpayer dollars to go overseas to make these connections with these various companies. This is very dangerous stuff. Why? Because of compromise. Why? Because of blackmail. Why? Because we know Hunter Biden's proclivity to, sniffing cocaine off of prostitutes' behinds and doing whatever the hell he wants and recording it. For posterity, I guess, for history. This will be great. This is your legacy, Biden. Your son's leaving a legacy here. And it's tragic, actually. There's a part of me that is just like when I see another human being who's so twisted and addicted and whose life is just a complete and utter disaster, like Hunter Biden's is, a part of me is like, wow, I can't believe it. I feel terrible, but not at the expense of my country. That's why I'm saying this. I'm not trying to rip Hunter Biden apart because he is connected to the Democratic Party, to a president, which I believe is driving our nation into the dirt. But because I believe he and his father and his uncle and his family have utilized their position of power in the government to basically, line their pockets. And they've done so with enemies of the United States. They've done so with China. Think about all the fentanyl that China is allowing to pour into our country by sending those precursor chemicals to Mexico. Do you think the Chinese don't know the Chinese Communist Party about what they're doing here in the United States, or the 107,000 people that last we saw died in the fiscal year of 2021 from overdoses, or those that are brain damaged from it? Or what about all of the land that I can't even believe it, that we are selling to the Chinese, right? Right under our noses. Farmland and land around our Air Force bases, like here in Texas. The Chinese have come in and literally gone 7 layers deep into the Pentagon. This was years ago. stealing our intellectual property as well. And yet the vice president, former vice president Joe Biden, his son Hunter Biden, his family, and now he's the president of these United States, have dealings with the Chinese money dealings. You don't think that Hunter Biden was sniffing cocaine in his hotel rooms overseas? Let me make something very clear to you. It was the same thing that, the left tried to say about Trump, which was complete lies. And now we know complete lies. Christopher Steele's crazy, dodgy dossier, which is a joke now. All of the things that they tried to accuse President Trump of, which were complete and utter lies. Those things actually did happen with President Biden's son, Hunter. So while he would go to Moscow, when he would go to Ukraine and visit, and while he was in China, if he is an addict, he was sniffing, lines off of prostitutes' behinds and probably, doing all kinds of things that I don't want to say on this show in case you're listening with your kids. He was doing all kinds of things there, and their intelligence agencies were recording it. And by God, you don't think that he was on the phone with his dad many times, that there were issues that they discussed on that phone that could potentially compromise the president of the United States of America? Come on. We know what's going on here. We're not idiots. We're not idiots. And yet, the media, and I'm going to ask Blake Masters about this because he is an expert. He is an expert in tech. And I think he really has. And I think this is the reason why Trump backed him. A formidable, I think, intellect that can kind of dissect what the heck is going on in Washington, D.C. with these scoundrels. I think we need people who are smart, who are on the go, and who are going to make a difference. I'm really excited to have him on this show and to ask him these questions. But to tell you the truth, when we see what's happened in this country, it's really astonishing. We have literally become like a banana republic. Our systems have been weaponized against political parties that should have never happened. Our founding fathers set up a constitution and a Declaration of Independence that are supposed to, and of course the executive branch and the legislative branch separate from the judicial branch, all of that balance of power. We're not supposed to be a banana republic. We're not. And I think we're going to swing back. We're going to clean house, but we can only do that with the right people in office. Let me tell you this before I get to Blake Masters, because I think this is important. According to the Washington Examiner, Hunter Biden remained listed, and this is why I called bullshit on, his lawyer's statement that he's not connected to these Chinese firms. They're always connected. Listed as a part owner of a firm as late as March. He was listed as a part owner of the firm as late as March. Guys, this is blatant and open corruption. Why is he allowed to get away with this? This is the worst case of corruption that I have ever seen in my career. Ever. These reserves are meant to protect Americans. These oil reserves, these are ours. Look at what's happening. Families can't even afford their gas now. They can't afford to go to the grocery store. I was just at the grocery store. I couldn't believe how much prices have gone up. I was like paying out at the end of the cash register, like just sitting there, with my husband. It's always like a treat when we go together because Marty can't see. But he is very helpful and he's putting everything up. But I want to organize all the groceries as they're going on the belt. And so as he's putting it up, I'm trying to organize. It just seems like we're taking way too much time. But when we get to the end and we're paying, yes, because I go to the grocery store. Yes, I do. I go like everybody else. I have to go I don't have anybody to go for me. Sometimes I'll have it delivered when when I'm not here. But it's so much money. I go to the grocery store. A lot of my kids were here this summer. I'm like, my gosh, $300, over $300 sometimes just, in a week. I'm like, how is this even possible? And now Americans are paying high prices at the gas pump. I am too. And yeah, they're sending the reserves to China, to a company that Hunter Biden is connected to. Yes, connected to. What's worse, the administration has no plans of replenishing the reserve. Listen to this. By the end of Biden's latest release from the emergency stockpile, the president will have depleted 260 million barrels from the nation's reserve. That's from the Federalist. In May, the Department of Energy announced efforts to replenish only 60 million barrels of what's been released, despite an authorized shortage capacity of 714 million barrels. The Energy Information Administration reported that just more than 492,000 barrels remained in storage on July 1st, exactly 1 month into the 6-month hurricane season. The Bidens are abusing our reserves and enriching themselves. That's it, plain and simple. Plain and simple. And as I stated on my Twitter account, at Sara Carter DC, follow me there, at Sara Carter DC. If Don Jr. had done the exact same thing as Hunter Biden, what would the media be saying? Think about that. I'm going to ask Arizona Senate candidate Blake Masters about just that. He's waiting on the other end. Blake Masters grew up in Arizona. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Catherine. He is running for the Senate. He is the author, the co-author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, 0 to 1, having sold more than, listen to this, 4 million copies. It's the world's most popular book on startups and venture capital. You just can't beat this guy's bona fides, right? I mean, and not only that, he's nice, he's smart, he's intelligent. You decide for yourself. I'm so excited to have Arizona Senate candidate Blake Masters on the show. You have a phenomenal background, Blake. You're president of the Teal Foundation. You're chief operating officer of the Teal Capital. You're part of the Trump transition team. I thought what was most interesting, and we'll go into that in a minute, was that you're the best-selling author as well with Peter Thiel on 0 to 1. And I read the Politico story about how you had taken these copious notes while you were a student for Peter Thiel, and that's really what got his attention on you. So thank you for being a part of the Sara Carter Show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
So tell me a little bit about that 0 to 1 first, because I think that really says a lot about you. And I think it's the reason why I think my colleague over at Fox News looks at you and says you're the future of the GOP. I mean, I think part of this is your personality of what you did, of how you achieve.
Yeah, well, that was it was kind of a lucky break, although it also taught me you make your own luck in this life. Sometimes you get unlucky, but if you want to get lucky, you better actually work hard and put yourself in the right position, and that's what I did. Peter Thiel came and taught a class my second year of law school. And I didn't know that much about him. I knew he was the sort of libertarian founder of PayPal. Seems pretty cool. Hey, I'll take the class. I took the class and I was blown away. Instead of just a normal professor or even a successful business guy just telling you, kind of rehashing old stuff, Peter thinks about the world in a new way. And he's always coming up with these analytical frames. And he's just a fascinating guy. Unfortunately, I can't tell you too much more about that class because it's sort of lost to history. I didn't take notes. I was never a big note taker or anything like that. And what a missed opportunity in retrospect. But then I went, he kind of became a mentor. I went and interned for his venture capital firm that summer. And then my last year in law school, he came back to Stanford and he taught another class. This one was about just how to create a technology startup. And this time, because of my prior experience with the class the year before, I was ready. And I didn't know what I was ready for. I just knew that I wanted to capture this class, right? And so I basically just attended each class and typed really quickly everything that he was saying, as much of it as I could catch. And then later I went home and I would just edit them pretty lightly, but to make it into a coherent essay. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly why or what I was doing, but I just hit publish, just put that out on the internet. And it became this viral phenomenon in Silicon Valley.
That's absolutely incredible. To me, was that really when, or was it prior to that Peter got your attention. I mean, or you got Peter's attention, because I think that's an important relationship. I actually met him, just for full disclosure, briefly at an event years ago in Washington, D.C. And this is the reason why I'm interested and I'm asking the question. I thought he was brilliant. My husband had been wounded in Afghanistan. It was about a year and a half later. Jennifer Griffin with Fox News had invited me to this event so I could speak. And Peter was actually there supporting wounded veterans. And I just thought, what an incredible man. I mean, here's this man, from Silicon Valley, who's done such remarkable work, and he had such compassion for the veterans back then, especially those that fought in Afghanistan and the ongoing war at the time. So that's kind of why I'm interested in a little bit of your background with him, just because I think he really does have he really cares about this country. And I would really assume that because he's taken to backing you and others and, playing more of a role behind the scenes in politics, I really believe that comes from his heart, that he is really going to support people that care about this country.
Well, that's certainly true. And fascinating to hear. I didn't know that particular story about, his support of that cause and event. But I think I caught his eye the year before, just as a talented, precocious student in his class. And so that's why I got the internship opportunity for him. But I think that's definitely where it would have ended if I didn't go and publish these class notes, And it wound up being really good for him. Imagine putting all that time and energy into creating this class. Here's the master class on how to start a startup. And you could have pieced this stuff together from maybe prior interviews or profiles, videos that he had, been a part of over the years. But you really had to do the work. And so Peter and his team, they compiled all this. And they gave it to us, these Stanford students. But if I didn't go and publicize that, the class wasn't being recorded, it wasn't being live streamed or anything like that, it would have all died in that room or just in the brain.
That's incredible.
200 students. So instead of 200 people, then 200,000 people, then 2 million people, right? Because we've sold millions of copies of the book that we wrote based on those class notes. Now everybody just gets to benefit from it. And I think a lot of amazing companies have been created as a result. So again, not sure I knew exactly what I was doing, but I put myself out there and did that, and it ended up working really well.
Yeah, I'm always a big believer in hard work, and hard work pays off. I mean, you just have to take the time to make your luck happen, right? I mean, I really do believe that. And now it appears to be paying off for you, because the latest poll shows you in the lead now over Jim Lehman and Mark Brnovich, both whom I've had here on the show, on the Sara Carter Show as guests. And you are now taking the lead. You are from Arizona, right? You were born in Arizona.
Almost. I was born in Colorado, but we moved to Arizona when I was 4. So it's so funny because
great.
Lehman is running these negative attack ads. We'll talk about that. But calling me a Californian, Blake Masters from California. And it's I grew up in Arizona, went to high school here, met my wife in middle school in Tucson, where we live now. Yeah, I went to Stanford Law School, worked in Silicon Valley for 6 years, then came back home. But it's I've spent most of my life in Arizona. So to be called a carpetbagger by someone from a different part of the country, and you can hear it in his voice, it's just funny. It's just so crazy to see what people say about you. But almost.
Why do you think? Almost. Well, I think 4 years old definitely qualifies you as a native Arizonan. And I was wrong on that. Colorado, it's a beautiful state too. I'm all about it. It's totally fine. I was asking you at the beginning before you came on the show, have you ever been to Tombstone?
Love Tombstone. Absolutely. And that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah, me too. I love Tombstone too. I mean, I love Arizona because it is so rich in history, and it is rich in that kind of Wild West history that I think has kind of spilled over into the political scene, right? I mean, you're all running, for this seat, vying for this seat. And this is a really heated race. It's you guys are going all out on it. Commercials, television commercials. You're trying to take this seat. Mark Kelly is out there. He's doing his thing. Tell me what makes you the candidate for the people of Arizona versus everyone else.
I think, and I don't want to talk bad about the other guys, or, only a little bit. I want to stay positive, but I just think I'm much more.
Go ahead. Talk bad. No, I'm just joking.
I'm much more dynamic and substantive on the issues that matter. I actually I know I don't know everything at my age of 35, but like I know a lot, and I also have a pretty good map of what I still have to learn. I know how disgusting DC is. I know how badly broken the system is. I've been paying close attention to it for upwards of, I was going to say 30 years, probably more like 25 years. And but I'm also a lot younger than them. And so to combine this ability to speak dynamically on issues, and I'm running on this bold America First agenda. I think unlike a lot of the other guys I'm running against who say the same stuff, America First, I think I actually believe it and understand it. And I was there at the beginning of President Trump's MAGA movement. And I think I see what the progressive left is doing to this country. And I'm pretty sure that I'll do as much as any one person to go in and not just stop them, not just play defense, right? But I'm playing offense. And that's what I think is the mentality that we need. That's what is lacking with the traditional candidate who has a good career and then at age 65 says like, dadgummit, I'm going to give back to the people. And, it's like we've seen that movie before. Maybe they mean well, but it's Republicans like that who just let the progressive left steamroll over them. And I'm like, hi, we're losing the country. We have a country to save. And so I think that youthful vigor will help.
I do too. And, I'm listening to you talk, and it makes a lot of sense to me. When we talk about America First, we're just seeing what's happened with an America Last agenda, right? Having Biden in office, I mean, even right now, the lowest we've ever seen polling on any president. It's astonishing how this nation has changed in such a short amount of time. Going from President Trump and all the success that he had implementing his policies, both on the foreign policy level as well as a national level. And now we're here. And I really believe, especially with the border states, Arizona, Texas, we're looking at, even in California, seeing these changes. What is your America First policies? What are the three most important, let's just put it out there, issues that you think right now the constituents in Arizona are looking at? They want changes. And I believe that flow right out of Arizona and across the entire United States. Right.
Well, first is just border security, right? Or the broader bucket here would be law and order. It's crazy what has happened. It wasn't perfect under President Trump, but man, it was pretty darn good. It was the best the situation had ever been in recent memory.
That's true.
And Biden comes in, and it's not even like Biden is trying to do a good job. It's not like he's trying to enforce federal law and just failing, and that would be bad enough. He's willfully violating it, right? They got rid of Remain in Mexico. They just stopped construction of the border wall, and then he positively invited the whole world to come here. And so he caused this border crisis. Of course, the whole southwest border zone is now controlled by the cartels. Horribly unfair to the people in southern Arizona, all of Arizona, our border patrol, our law enforcement. But these problems, they come north. They don't stay at the border, of course. It's the drugs that come through. Fentanyl's coming through. Crime. In Tucson, the homicide rate is up 87% since 2019. It's almost double.
Wow.
And in Phoenix, it's up 50%. So it's just lawlessness and, borderline anarchy. And that's what Biden has given us. So step one is to make Arizona safe again. And President Trump knew that security starts at the border. Law and order starts at the southern border. And we just have to solve that. Number two would be, get this economy back on track. It's so bad right now. We got to make America prosperous again, would be that formulation. Joe Biden caused this inflation. Mark Kelly caused this inflation. They pretend that inflation doesn't exist, and then when you corner them and you prove it does, they say, oh, well, it's transitory and temporary, and it's not that high. It's only 8.5%. No, inflation in Phoenix Metro right now is 20 to 30% generalized. I just saw $6 gas at a gas station in Arizona. It's crazy, but it's also, I guess what's astonishing is it's so predictable. It's like, Sarah, what did they think was going to happen if you print $6 trillion in 1 year? And if you take America First energy policies, cancel them, cancel pipelines, stop domestic oil production. It's like we're begging Saudi Arabia for more oil. It's just disgusting.
Well, and I agree with you on inflation. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Some people are suggesting we are in a recession right now. Some people are suggesting of course, that the Biden administration is going to do far worse in the upcoming years because they are not listening to the experts. And we see what's happening in the stock market. We see what's happening across the board, even with the housing market right now. So do you think, I mean, a few years down the road, come 2024, it's going to, I mean, this is not just about November. This is about the future of our nation. I mean, having Biden in office, how bad can this get? If we don't take back the House, if we don't take back the Senate, how bad can this get?
It's game over if we don't take back the House and the Senate. If we don't take back the House and the Senate, they will be able to get the Biden agenda through. Build Back Better, $3.5 trillion. Boom, they'll do it. They're chomping at the bit to do it, even though that would just obviously cause such massive inflation, maybe even get hyperinflation at that point. And, we'll get Q2 numbers out later this month, but I expect that it will show negative GDP growth and we'll be formally in a recession. It's Joe Biden's recession, Mark Kelly's recession. They're either so incompetent or so hell-bent on the destruction of this country. It's hard to tell sometimes, which it is, but they would cause a depression. Economically, it would be a disaster. Of course, if they wipe away the filibuster and they have 51 Senate votes or 50 plus a tie in Kamala Harris, they will pack the Supreme Court. They will federalize elections. They will add new states to the union. They'll try to add D.C. Maybe they won't be able to, but they'll add Puerto Rico. I think these people would add Afghanistan to the union if they could, not because they care about these places, but they want those 2 new Senate seats, right? A lock on 2 Democrat Senate seats for each new state that they add. And that's how they think. It's about consolidating power for themselves. The health and well-being of American families be damned. That's how they think. And this is why everyone always says this election is the most important election of all time, right? How many times have you heard that?
Right.
But this time, it's really true. 2022 and 2024, and they go together. If we get the right Republicans in office in these elections, then we have a chance to take back this country. If not, I really think it slips through our fingers.
Absolutely. You're a parent. One of the big issues, and maybe this is your third most important issue, I don't know, but I'll let you answer this question. But it came up while you were talking, is education and our children's education. And I think there was an awakening in the United States when we saw what happened in Loudoun County. And I was from Virginia. I live in Texas now, but and I eat tacos. I'm just throwing that out there because I think Joe Biden's taco statement was hilarious. It didn't really offend me. I'm half Cuban, but I don't really care. But I thought it was pretty funny. We do not eat tacos in the morning in Cuba. But I'm saying, as far as looking at Loudoun County and what happened and that uprising of parents that were saying, to Terry McAuliffe, and I bring this up on several past podcasts because I think it was a pivotal moment for the GOP, where he said, your parents are not supposed to be involved in their children's education. And parents just stepped back and said, whoa, wait a minute.
What?
Who are you to tell me that? Right? Because now we look back and we've been indoctrinated. A lot of our children in the university systems, in our Ivy League schools, in our public schools, we see what's happened with this leftist radical indoctrination. What do you think about education? What is your stand on education for the citizens of Arizona, and how do you feel about it?
In some sense, education literally could not be more important. It's this meta issue. It's going to be a challenge to go in and fight Biden and win, but we can do it. We can get border security. You could get election integrity back. You can put the inflation cat back in the bag and drive inflation down. But in some sense, you can imagine solving all those problems. If you don't solve the left-wing indoctrination in the schools, then it's only a matter of time before all of those problems and more come back with a vengeance, right? They'll be even worse because you're just hatching a new generation of, indoctrinated communists, basically. And that's not going to work. We are failing our young people. I remind people it's not just the indoctrination, right? In some sense, the failure in the schools is basic. It's schools don't teach the basics well anymore. And so if kids are graduating from 8th grade, they're graduating not being able to read, not being able to write properly. Mathematics skills are super poor, and they don't know anything true about the history of the country. All they're taught is, basically to hate Republicans, hate Donald Trump. And that just impoverishes kids. If you're not actually giving them the basics to succeed in life, obviously that's devastating. But then the flip side of the coin is something's going to come in and fill that time. Right? Literally, something's going to fill the void, and we've seen what it is. It's toxic left-wing ideology. There's the critical race theory version of this. that, asks kids to relate to each other in primarily racial terms. It's the opposite of what I remember learning in 1992 in public school in Tucson, Arizona. It was MLK and the content of your character. That's what matters, not the color of your skin. That's what we should be teaching young people. Instead, 30 years later, somehow it's the opposite. You're a victim or you're an oppressor because of the color of your skin. Like, I think that's disgusting. There's the fake history version, 1619 history curriculum, right? This stuff should be banned. It should just be banned. To teach kids that this country, it's not perfect, obviously. You know who knew it wasn't perfect? The founders.
Our founding fathers. Our founding fathers.
Union. You're supposed to make it more and more perfect with each succeeding generation. They knew they weren't perfect, but the left really wants to teach kids that because, slavery existed, that this country is irredeemably somehow evil and racist. And it's like, that's hogwash. It's just BS. And to pollute a kid's mind with that, instead of teach them the true history and then invite them to continue doing better and better, I think is just, it's shameful. And obviously, if you teach a generation of young people to hate their country, like, it's going to stick and it's going to poison the well. It's going to destroy everything.
Well, I think we've already seen that happening. I think we've seen that with this intensity to really, that we believe this is the most important election ever. I think the reason we all believe that and the reason we know that's the truth is because we've actually seen it manifest itself in the streets of our nation in a way we've never seen before. We've seen parents divided from their children. We've seen the school systems really become something that we are not familiar with at all, like you talked about, teaching our children lies and actually fighting us publicly. We've seen the weaponization of our bureaucracies, agencies like the FBI, like the DOJ. I mean, especially the Department of Justice, where for me, I've always believed, and before I became more of a columnist and opinionated person, I always believed, once you take it to the justice system in America, that is the reason why everyone wants to be here, because we believe in equal justice, right? We're not going to steal someone's land from them because we're the Taliban. We're not going to say we're in control because we're a dictatorship. We're going to take it to the courts. We're going to fight it out in the courts. And then we're going to abide by what the courts say. But when you have a Justice Department that's working in cahoots with a political party, that becomes difficult.
Oh, well said. I mean, the rule of law is like, a foundational principle here in the United States. And we've seen, and it's happened so much more quickly than I would have thought, this two-tier justice system that's emerging. If you wear a MAGA hat and say something mean to AOC, you'll probably be like handcuffed and shipped off to prison. But if you're a BLM and she'll cry about it on Twitter and all this. But if you're a BLM activist or an Antifa rioter in the summer of 2020, remember, you could literally burn down a police precinct in Minneapolis and nothing would happen to you. And if you did happen to find yourself in handcuffs, Kamala Harris's bail fund would bail you out, right? And so this two-tier justice system, double standard, it's corrosive to the rule of law. And I fear that if we let it go an inch further, we're going to lose the rule of law. And if you lose the rule of law, you lose the United States of America. It really is scary.
It is scary. And another reason why we really need every single one of us, everybody who's listening right now, everybody who's listening to what Blake Masters has to say, especially all of you in Arizona, remember, it's all up to you, each and every one of us, to be vested in our government, to be actively involved, and to get out there and vote, no matter what. Get out there and vote. Now, I wanted to ask you, because you got President Trump's endorsement. It was huge. I mean, that's a big deal. That's the real big guy right there. That's what I'm talking. And he has so much faith in you and and belief in what the future of the GOP needs to be. And what was that like? How did that come about? Give us some inside baseball. Something we haven't heard anywhere.
Well, he endorsed me in early June. So it's been about a month, a little bit more. And it's been great for the campaign, obviously. Personal honor to be endorsed, but politically, it's just been rocket fuel, which is awesome. But, it was a long process. Like, President Trump really took his time. He got to know the different candidates in the race. He paid attention. I think I met with him 3 or 4 times in the last year, just to call it a quarterly update. Here's how the race is going and all this. But I remember I tried to take a show, don't tell strategy. You know, like I didn't ask President Trump for his endorsement last September or something. I'd barely been campaigning for 3 months, and I didn't think I'd earned it yet. I knew that it was going to be important to show that I can play offense, that I can get traction on my own, that I can stand on my own two legs, you know, before he came in and tapped me on the shoulder. But I think it was just working hard every day in service of that bold America First agenda, right? That Trump 2016 agenda. Man, that's what we needed in 2016. We saw how good it was actually, and then look how bad things have gotten in the last 2 years. So it's still what America and Arizona badly need. And I think President Trump just looked around and he met with Brnovich, he met with Lehman, and he could tell that they just weren't the guys to carry the torch. So I'm honored to have been,
And you are carrying that torch, and you're carrying it to the lead. You're carrying it to the lead. Is it astonishing to you? I mean, do you sit back and talk to your family and say, wow, I mean, I didn't think last year that this is where I would be. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, you're young, you're 35, but you're brilliant. You've got, I mean, I actually think your age is going to work for you here because and I'm going to talk to you about the tech sector because I think that comes into play right now. I think we're living in a different day and age, in a different time. I think people that understand the tech sector and understand what's going on have a leg up on everyone else because this is a new world, right? I mean, in my opinion, this is the beginning of a new world. So first, surprised? Do you kind of sit back or are you just working to get to that finish line?
You know, I'm glad that the hard work is paying off, obviously. And sure, you can zoom out and be like, hey, this is really crazy. Like running for office is crazy in the modern era. I just had a left-wing journalist email, they're doing a hit piece, and they found a poem that my wife wrote in middle school. And they're like doing analysis of this poem and what does this mean and blah, blah, blah. And was this about you? You know, and it's just like, what the heck? This is like presidential race or Kavanaugh level scrutiny here. And it's really weird. So yeah. But no, you know, I actually expected this. I thought I would be a good candidate. I thought I'd be able to prove that I can be bold on the issues that matter and actually earn Arizonans' trust. And so I'm not surprised to be here. This was the plan. And it's like, this is my message to especially young people who I think, you know, you're kind of taught to be a victim. You're kind of taught that you're not in charge of your own destiny. But man, make plans. A bad plan is better than no plan. You make a plan, you try to achieve it. It's not always going to work. But if you don't plan, then you're just adrift in this really complex world, right? So I set a goal. I've worked, you know, my tail off to achieve it. And I think we're very close to winning this primary. And then, you know, sights set on November 8th. That's the next goal. Kick Mark Kelly out of the Senate and actually represent Arizonans well.
Oh gosh, that will be, will I be invited to that party? Because I want to go to that celebration. That will be amazing. I'm gonna love that. I'm gonna make a plan, even if I have to hang out outside and do my podcast from outside your celebration. I will be there. I want to ask you about censorship really quick, and I know I've got to let you go soon, but this is what's been so unbelievable to me is how not only outlets and, you know, like the New York Times and the Washington Post became so overtly political, you know, jumping on to the band. We always expected people to lean one way or another. You can't expect people to be completely objective. And people run news organizations. I don't expect it to be completely objective, but to be so overt that they became opinion makers, that became a big deal. Is that you just talked about your wife having to deal with, you know, a very leftist, you know, journalist dissecting an elementary school poem. I would love for them to try to dissect one of mine because I don't even know what I was talking about then. And I was just like,
we were kids.
It was like roses are red. You know, we were kids. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that and then how that kind of translated into the tech world, because then the tech world became very political as well. And that is when the merger of these two entities are, you know, our First Amendment, freedom of speech, a great republic depends on a free press. I mean, but we became self-censorers, like almost like fascists.
Yeah.
Like we will do the job of the leftists, you know. Yeah, that's crazy.
This fusion of corporate power and state power. And I do think it's fascism, right? They call us fascists. No, it's projection. It's the left-wing, big tech, big media, big government complex. And I really think this is an existential threat to this country I think a lot of people in Arizona on the ground, I think, are quite reasonably concerned about election integrity, right? And we know we have a ballot harvesting problem in Arizona and all these irregularities and things are messed up in 2020. But I think weeks before any mules got to work, any ballot harvesters got to work in Arizona, I sincerely believe that big tech and working with big media had already thrown the election to Joe Biden. Like, it was not a free and fair election. The corporate censorship alone basically determined the outcome, right? They did it by censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story. And now
exactly
sort of turning on Hunter Biden, right? Like, it seems like they want Joe Biden out. But man, Hunter Biden is so messed up. It's you can't even understatement of the century, right? And this guy, personal problems, but also I think criminal business dealings with China, with the Ukraine. Well, 10% for the big guy, right? That's what the laptop showed. And the New York Post, which is not a tabloid, it's a real newspaper with a story history. They published that bombshell story in October of 2020. This is mere weeks before people are about to vote. And Facebook and Google and Twitter, they basically ripped it off the internet. And so, obviously, most people who are listening to this podcast, highly intelligent and aware voters, activists, people heard about it, but not everybody heard about it, Dozens of millions of Americans who might just kind of tune in the last 2 weeks before a presidential election, they didn't get to hear about that. The Hunter Biden and the Biden family crime story, they literally did not hear about that before the election. And the official margin in Arizona was 10,500 votes, razor thin. Nationwide, you add up the 5 or 6 swing states that mattered. This election in 2020 was, officially decided by fewer than 100,000 votes. And if you know anything about how big tech and mass media can move minds and manipulate behavior, that's the election right there. And so why are we letting giant left-wing multinational corporations determine who the next president of the United States is? I find that astonishing. And you don't have a prayer of fixing it if you don't get young, smart, tech-savvy conservatives in to really hold these companies accountable. It's not going to be easy, but man, we have to do it.
Absolutely, because half the time when I've seen them testify, I've seen Google testify, up on Capitol Hill, seen Facebook testify. I mean, I could see our lawmakers just looking like it was just glossing over them, like they had no idea what algorithms were, or what was going on behind the scenes, or did it just make it up on its own, or was it programmed? Nobody even knew what they were talking about. I mean, it was like, please, God, put someone there. Put someone like Blake Masters on there, or somebody who knows what they're talking about, so that they can hold these tech companies accountable. And I personally believe that it is the wave of the future. I personally believe it can affect elections. We saw, you talk about election integrity, Wisconsin, the Supreme Court right now said, hey, no more ballot boxes, or very few of them, and you have to come in and drop it off personally. You can't just be giving, ballot harvesting. So maybe Arizona will get to that point.
I hope so. We need to tighten up a lot. But a lot of people are focused on the issues on the ground, like it should be probably one day, one vote, no ballot boxes or no drop boxes, stuff like that. I feel like my unique focus, and I'm glad they're doing that. My unique focus is like, how to make sure that Google doesn't change its algorithms in the weeks before an election to boost Biden content and suppress Trump content, right? Because they if they're clever enough, and I believe they're clever enough to be subtle, then they can change the outcome, and nobody in the government in any official capacity has eyes or ears on that. I think that's crazy. But if we don't fix that, you're not going to...
I think that's where you win. I think that's where you win, Blake. I think you have the upper hand on looking at a situation like that and being able to analyze it and dissect it. And I think that's important. Now, before I let you go, I've got to ask you about the whole public spat. I mean, you may not answer, may not want to say anything. You know where I'm going with this, between Elon Musk and President Trump. I mean, I'm just like, wow, it's like Godzilla and Mothra. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving it a too, but it's like, the two, it's like these two giants, coming at each other on Twitter and everywhere else. And in, speeches. I mean, are you going to stay out of it, or do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I think it's a spectacle. That's for sure. I have respect for Elon Musk for sure as an entrepreneur. I mean, tremendous respect for President Trump. I think he literally saved the country. Trump's better than Elon at politics. I'll tell you that. Elon's been center left his whole life, and increasingly he's Republican curious, and that's fine. The issue I take with Elon's latest statement, he said President Trump was too old to run for office. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that age is a problem. I think, it's a problem. Biden's dementia. But I'll tell you, having spent time with President Trump recently, he seems sharper than ever. He's funny and good spirits. He seems more vigorous now somehow than he did in October of 2020 at the tail end of his first 4 years. So if he chooses to run again, I think it's his, and he'll win it. If he doesn't choose to run again, then I think we do get Ron DeSantis, who will probably be a very strong president. And so I think the future of Republican politics is bright. I hope Elon does cross over and become a Republican. But yeah, it's funny to see these guys go, I guess. I think President Trump has the upper hand, though, politically.
I have to agree with you on that. And I agree with you on the fact that he does seem more vigorous and more, well rested right now. But that goes without saying. After what he went through, I couldn't even imagine anyone but him coming through that unscathed. He's the only president that I've ever seen that really did not age. Like after 4 years, like he was just, I don't know how he did it. Even with the DOJ, even with the FBI, even with all of the, calamities and people that were going after him. And he got out of the swamp and just brushed it off and went to Florida and started over again. It's pretty amazing. And I see that in you too. I see a very strong candidate, one that obviously Mark Kelly has got to be scared of right now, and one that is got a brilliant future in politics. Blake and I got to tell everyone, this is the first time I've ever talked to Blake. I feel like I know him. I mean, you're a good candidate. I mean, this is great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we see how hard they're coming after me, which tells me I'm over the target and I'm a threat.
Exactly. That's where that's when you're doing the right thing. That's when you're doing. Anything else you want to say before I let you go? Any message for the constituents in Arizona?
Well, if you're in Arizona, I would sure be honored for your vote. I'll beat Mark Kelly. I'm very confident of that. But that's just the beginning. It's not enough to just beat a Democrat. And congratulations, you're in there. You have an R next to your name. No. Tired of Republicans thinking that way. It's about showing such new and bold leadership that we actually change the way the Senate and this government is working, because right now it's just not working. And pretty soon, God willing, and with your help, we're going to have a young and dynamic America First caucus in the Senate. I'll be a big part of it. And, thank you for your
super excited about that America First caucus.
Oh, yeah.
Very excited about that. That's a great idea. And for everyone else out there, get the book 0 to 1. I'm throwing it out there because I think it's going to tell you a lot about what a dynamic person Blake Masters is, what he learned, and I personally, Blake, thank you so much for being on the show, and I hope you come back and join us again.
I would love to. Thank you, Sarah.
So I thought it was very interesting when Blake Masters brought up, election integrity, because that's one of the things I want to talk about. And specifically, I asked him about Wisconsin Supreme Court. And it now ruled that absentee voter drop boxes are illegal. That is wonderful. That is astonishing. It is a big win for election integrity, not for the GOP, but for every single American that believes in election integrity. This was a huge win. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled last Friday that the absentee voter drop boxes are illegal under the state's constitution. The court upheld, and that's what everybody was saying from the beginning. You can't just cut corners. Oh, COVID, and obviously that worked for the left. Lockdowns and having to ballot harvest was perfect under COVID for the left. But it was illegal. And so many Americans did not realize that, you can't just put ballot boxes everywhere and let people shove 2,000 Mules showed, right? Dinesh D'Souza loved his film. I was in Mar-a-Lago to see it. And it's astonishing. The FBI should be investigating based on that film. Now, do we have all the facts about the election? No, we don't. But one thing we do know is that I do believe, like Blake Masters, that the election was skewed by the media, skewed by the left, and election integrity did not exist in that last election. But Wisconsin Supreme Court has ruled, hey, you're not going to do that again. According to the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism, there were 500, listen to this, ballot drop boxes that were widely used in Wisconsin during the 2020 election. Absentee voting and drop boxes surged in popularity during the pandemic. Listen to this. This is from Axios. With more than 40% of all voters casting mail ballots during the 2020 election. The ruling is a blow to Democrats in the battleground state before the 2022 and 2024 elections. Thank God. And those elections cannot come fast enough. And by the way, Biden narrowly beat Trump in Wisconsin. It was a very important state for President Trump and for the left. You know how much Biden won? 21,000 votes. Think about that. There were over 500 ballot drop boxes. Think about the problems we have with ballot harvesting. I was watching in Afghanistan when we sent people over to oversee the elections when Karzai was running against Abdullah. I was on the ground. I mean, I watched as the Taliban targeted people who voted. I remember when they first put the ink on the people's hands, so they would ensure voter safety. But guess what? Taliban came by and cut people's fingers off. That's how serious a vote is. That's how serious it is. That's our God-given right in this nation and established by our founding fathers and our Constitution. That is our part in this country's ability to stay a republic, to stay a democracy. Each one of us, everybody out there, if you're wasting a vote by not voting, shame on you. Shame on you. But we've got to do it the right way, and it's got to be with integrity. We can't have somebody walking by a ballot box shoving like 20 ballots in there. Think about it. 21,000 votes in 2020 won Wisconsin for the Democrats. The Democrats took Wisconsin with those 21,000 votes. That's how close elections are. That's what Blake Masters was talking about. That's why, really, honestly, he's able to see what's going on because he understands the change in our country now, the change in our world through technology and everything else. We're seeing those changes, and those changes can be awesome or they can be a detriment. But we need people that are going to be able to hold those who are breaking the rules accountable. Yes, you, Facebook. Yes, Google. Yes, all of you who think you can play this game and win. In the end, I believe democracy is going to win. In the end, I believe our nation is going to go far ahead because we're smart. The American voter is smart. The American people are smart, and they're going to put the right people in office. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show today. Remember, follow me on Twitter at Sara Carter DC and on Instagram at SCarterDC. That is on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.